I'm sure it will be a success. That's great. Are you ready?
Yes.
It's not going into orbit. It's changed course.
I was sure my calculations were right.
It's still off course. And losing height towards east.
At 8 miles a second.
It must be. Look, it's already across the Atlantic.
It's over the Balearic Islands now.
Now Sardinia.
Now it's over Italy.
Yes, over Rome. We must destroy it by remote control. It's too dangerous.
Aiuto! L'atomica. Hanno sparato l'atomica. La bomba a idrogeno. La guerra fredda è diventata calda. Sono ricominciate le ostilità. Aiuto! Aiuto! Cosa c'è? Cosa è successo? Ragguagliatemi! Notiziatemi!
Credo che sia stato un razzo, cavaliere! È scoppiato proprio sopra di noi!
Un razzo? O per bacco? Ma vi sembra ora dei razzi questi? Eh? Io vorrei sapere chi è quell'idiota che si permette razzolare a quest'ora vicino alle nostre case!
Sarà uno di quei razzi di cui parlano sempre i giornali. Sì, quelli per la luna! Per la luna! Che bello! Evviva la luna! Evviva! Evviva!
Ah sì? Ebbene, è giunto il momento che io renda di dominio pubblico la mia opinione al riguardo. Io dei satelliti, dello spazio, della luna, me ne infischio, anzi, me ne strainfischio, capito? Missile. Ha visto, no? Come in America hanno buttato giù il missile. Tutte queste cose poi, queste scemenze sull'astronautica, la sai perché quel cretino che sta lassù te le insegna col suo cannocchiale interplanetario. Gli Sputnik, i razzi satelliti, ma mi facciano il piacere una buona volta, me lo faccino. A dove siamo giunti? E tutto questo perché? Per conquistare lo spazio. Ma che se ne fanno dello spazio, dico io? Che se ne fanno? Che cos'è lo spazio? È niente. È aria. Questo è. Conquisti l'aria. Apra la finestra e conquista l'aria.
I loro sogni spaziali resteranno nei fumi. E così gli uomini diavolo atterrarono con il loro disco volante. L'aria di Mercurio, carica di diafratile di piombo, era irrespirabile e pesante. L'anco, la guida mercuriana, aprì prima un occhio, poi un secondo, poi un terzo, poi un quarto. Andiamo, sono impazziti. Ma come? Lo sanno tutti che gli abitanti di Mercurio non hanno assolutamente 4 occhi. 16 ne hanno. È una pazzia.
Guarda avanti, cornuto!
Indossati gli scafandri isolanti, aprirono cautamente le paratie stagne dell'astronave.
Voilà. Ecco fatto.
Coraggio, Achille, spiegali tutto.
Achille, coraggio.
Sì, non è un romanzo comico, cavaliere,
No, no.
è un romanzo di fantascienza.
Ah, sì?
Sì, ecco qua, questa sarebbe la copertina, guardi che
Ah, bella!
non è da ridere,
No,
questa
non
piovra è
ridere.
pericolosissima, è
Non sto-
velenosa.
non sto
Se lo
ridendo.
morde, l'ammazza. Dunque, il titolo del romanzo, che è serio, non è comico, sarebbe Il razzo nell'Orazio. No, l'Orazio nello spazio.
Orazio nello spazio.
È un romanzo di fantascienza, l'Orazio nello Il razzo nello spazio.
Oddio, non ne posso.
Cavaliere, non ridi, per favore. Ho dedicato tutte le ore libere a questo romanzo.
Nello spazio.
Sì.
Ma fate il piacere, vattene via! Ignorante!
E io sono un cretino, capito? Grazie. Ah, io sarei un cretino, sarei. Faccio vedere io se sono un cretino. Che io arriverò in alto, molto in alto.
Right. Molto in alto. But top secret.
Silence. Ah, yes. Silenzio, molto meglio.
Good work, Campbell. But you're not finished yet. Make a cast iron contract with him. Discuss it with the lawyers. And remember, he must accept the risk of not returning from space. Make sure it's all legal. I'm responsible personally, remember.
Il razzo nello spazio.
Ma no!
Ma certo, il razzo nello spazio, c'è anche il mio autografo.
Il razzo nello spazio! Ho già dato alla stampa!
Davvero?
Sì.
Davvero?
Sì.
Se si fa sparare spazio.
Sì, si fa sparare.
No, no.
Nello spazio ci sparate vostro nonno!
Ma lo sai che lassù ci sono le meteore?
E beh,
I raggi cosmici?
e beh,
I mostri?
beh, silenzio! Il Cristoforo Colombo dello spazio, l'Americo Vespucci del razzo,
Segreto spaziale.
un segreto. Ah, birichino, un segreto, un super segreto. Modestamente lo faccio per mandarmi, io detengo. Loro mi vedono così in borghese, ma io sono un detentore di un segreto atomico spaziale a razzo interplanetario.
Questo è un grande momento per la scienza. Per la prima volta 2 uomini ci manderanno notizie dallo spazio.
Aiuto! Aiuto, voglio scendere! Fate fermare! Conduttore! Uomini razziali! Fate fermare, voglio scendere alla prossima, subito!
L'esperimento è fallito! Fallito! Non bisognerà mai rivelare al mondo di questo nostro lancio. Il satellite è schizzato via di orbita e si è sottratto al nostro controllo.
E 2 uomini che erano dentro?
Non ne sapremo mai più nulla. L'uomo spaziale è ancora un sogno irraggiungibile. Nessun essere vivente metterà mai piedi su Venere, su Marte, sulla Luna.
Ma guarda un po' alla mia età, andare a finire sulla Luna. Io di questa stagione sono abituato ad andare a Capri. Che miseria. Non si respira! Non si respira! Non si respira! Ah! Non si respira! No, ma qua si respira! Ma allora quelle che scrivono sulla fantascienza sono tutte fesserie! Non c'è un razzo di ritorno? Scusi, Faccia l'aereo stop!
If you looked at the moon over the course of a few weeks, you'd probably notice that it looks slightly different every day. The change in its shadow is based on where the moon is in its orbit. We call this cycle the phases of the moon, and it occurs roughly once a month. At least twice a year, however, something quite different happens. The moon passes through the shadow cast by the Earth, causing it to look extremely unusual for a short period of time. From the Earth, the moon will appear to darken and turn a deep red before eventually returning to normal. This is called a lunar eclipse. If we were to look at what happens from space during an eclipse, it would go something like this. First, the moon passes through what's called the penumbra, where the sun's light is only partially obscured. This results in only a slight darkening of the moon. As the moon continues along its path, however, it enters what's called the umbra, where all direct light from the sun is blocked. But if the sun is blocked, why does the moon turn red? When light from the sun goes by the side of the Earth, it passes through a long and thick layer of Earth's atmosphere. Shorter wavelengths of sunlight, like blue, are scattered by the atmosphere, so by the time the light has finished its trip to the moon, more of the longer wavelengths, like red, are left over. On the Earth, the same thing happens at sunset, as the ground you stand on gradually passes into night. As the eclipse ends, the moon leaves the umbra, returns to its normal color, and then leaves the penumbra, brightening and resuming its original cycle. Overall, the whole process lasts only from a few minutes to a few hours, so you'll have to be quick if you want to see it.
You don't really understand sometimes what a terrible burden it is to know some of the things that I know. And try to wake people up and impart this knowledge to them. And find out that they just have walls built in front of them. They want to be slaves.
Now I risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
La Luna è responsabile di molte delle cose che avvengono sulla superficie della Terra. Nel 1178 un meteorite colpì il suolo lunare. Quel violento impatto sarebbe la causa delle imponenti maree che si verificano a ogni fase lunare nella Terra del Fuoco in Argentina. Quella notte un aumento del 23% del livello medio della marea provocò una tempesta a 2000 miglia al largo della costa del Pacifico, causando un significativo aumento della ionizzazione molecolare nell'atmosfera.
Well, it is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is a plasma phenomenon, a cosmic plasma, and that this fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958.
You and your co-pilot are 250,000 miles from Earth, guiding your spacecraft down to the surface of the moon. A third member of the flight crew in another spacecraft is maintaining a lunar orbit until you return for the journey back to Earth.
As your craft decelerates, you scan the lunar landscape, gliding over craters and craggy mountains. You approach the target area and begin searching for a level spot to land. What this spacecraft looks like and how it operates is our story today on Science Reporter.
Well, it is by now rather more than a theory, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation.
What will be the result if you are proved to be correct in your theories?
The result will be profound and decisive, because it will give proof that a complete reinvestigation of the laws of nature is necessary. Because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it. The soft landing attempts will all fail.
Hello, I'm John Fitch, MIT Science Reporter.
I'm standing on the floor of plant number 5 at the Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation in Bethpage, New York. This is a company perhaps best known for its long history in building military aircraft, from the stubby-wing torpedo bombers of World War II to the latest supersonic fighters. But this company has also received a contract from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration to develop and build
The Lunar Excursion Module, or LEM. This is the spacecraft which will carry 2 astronauts from a lunar orbit to the surface of the moon and back up again. In a moment, we'll have a chance to climb aboard the LEM and actually make a simulated landing.
But first, let's see how the spacecraft fits into the overall Project Apollo mission to place man on the moon and return him safely to Earth.
The Apollo spacecraft will lift off from pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center.
After the first and second stages are separated, the spacecraft will be placed in an Earth orbit. Here it will be checked out by the astronauts and through telemetry by the Ground Mission Control Center. At a precise point in the orbit, the third stage rocket engine will reignite.
It is by now rather more than a theory, because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it. The soft landing attempts will all fail.
Even though manned exploration of the moon isn't scheduled to occur until the end of this decade,
the hardware for Project Apollo is already being developed at over 5,000 industrial centers scattered across the United States. The Saturn booster is being developed in Alabama, the command and service modules are being assembled in California, and the LEM is being built here in New York. Earlier today, we talked with Mr. Thomas Kelly, project engineer for LEM, and asked him to describe this unusual spacecraft for us.
This is a full-scale mock-up of the Lunar Excursion Module.
well, if this will never fly, why do you have to build such a full-scale model?
Well, we need an accurate model in order to check the fit and installation characteristics of all our equipment and also to practice all the operations with the spacesuited astronauts. The vehicle, as you can see, is a 2-stage
spacecraft.
The upper stage we call the ascent stage. This is the inhabited portion of the
spacecraft.
And also contains the majority of the electronic equipment. The lower stage is called the descent stage.
Primarily used during the lunar landing.
The descent stage contains the descent propulsion system, which consists of the descent rocket engine and the tanks and pressurization equipment that supply it with propellants. Right? In addition to that,
we
mount all equipment which we can leave behind
on the lunar surface
in the descent stage, such as
scientific equipment that the astronauts
will use in their lunar surface experiments. You don't want to take anything back, but you don't have to. Right, we want to save the weight as much as possible by leaving behind what we don't need. The other major component of the descent stage is the landing gear. We can get a better look at the gear over here. This leg over here appears to be sort of folded up. Yes, it's shown in the retracted position. All 4 of the landing gear legs will be retracted in this fashion while we
spacecraft adapter.
The adapter mounts the LEM to the Saturn booster vehicle. Now, after the adapter is jettisoned, all 4 legs will be deployed by means of a spring-loaded mechanism. Now, I can demonstrate the deployment of this one leg right here. I'll release this demonstration pin, and the spring-loaded mechanism will deploy the gear. In the actual case, this pin release is performed by
an explosive device.
That's out there in locked in position. Right, the gear stays locked, all 4 gears stay locked for the remainder of the mission. However, here we have the
scientific equipment bay.
This houses some of the typical experiments that the astronauts will conduct
after they land on the lunar surface.
We can remove the panel here and show some of the representative equipment. The astronauts will get down out of the spacecraft, come around here and take out these, yeah, see, these boxes are removable, and depending on what experiment they were conducting, they would take the boxes out and lower them down to the surface. Well, now, what sort of experiments would they perform? Well, some of the typical scientific experiments would involve seismological measurements looking for moonquakes on the lunar surface.
Measurements of the lunar atmosphere.
Oh, really? I didn't think there was any atmosphere on the moon.
There is calculated to be a very tenuous atmosphere on the lunar surface. Out onto the lunar surface.
Does that mean that people on Earth will actually be able to see what's going on with this?
They will see real-time television transmission of the activities on the lunar surface.
These cables will be connected to antenna and to the handheld TV camera respectively.
Well, it's going to be a very exciting event.
It sure will be.
If we look down below the stage here, we can see the skirt of the descent rocket engine, which projects below the base of the descent stage. And we have a full-scale mock-up of the descent engine over here. This is the skirt that we saw
on the spacecraft mock-up.
And above it is the combustion chamber and the plumbing and hardware which control the flow of propellants into the rocket engine. You mean you can control how much thrust you get from this engine? Yes, because of the
lunar landing requirements.
This must be a throttleable engine so that we can control the thrust
to let the vehicle down gently on the surface. The spacecraft directly up here is one of the 4 reaction control jet clusters. There are 4 small rocket engines in each of the clusters.
Each of those little ones is a rocket engine?
Yes, they're 100 pounds thrust each, and they can fire very short impulses. They're used to maneuver the spacecraft and position it in whatever attitude we desire. Transmits data back to Earth throughout the mission.
Including those television pictures the astronauts might be taking?
Yes. Spacecraft to the lunar surface. Spacesuits on the lunar surface. Lunar surface. From the lunar surface.
How soon will the astronauts be able to actually fly these LEMs? Well, they'll never be able to fly an actual LEM on Earth due to the difference in the strength of the gravitational field on Earth as compared to the moon. The LEM doesn't have enough thrust to actually fly on Earth, even though it can fly very well on the moon.
So much of our flying and practice landing will have to be done in simulated flight conditions and in carefully controlled simulations.
John, this is one of our LEM simulators. It's what we call an engineering design tool that we use in developing the lunar excursion module.
Is that so you can see whether the controls will actually allow you to fly it properly?
Yes, right.
But this room doesn't move, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's a fixed base simulation. The cockpit we're standing in doesn't move. The displays do move, however. These internal displays here, and also our external display, which is a TV monitor.
What you see on that? You see, the motion vehicle, I'll tell you how it works. The pilot stands in the flight station. They lose the controls, and rush to a computer, which is right out the computer in another room.
Which in turn flies a television camera over a lunar map, which is in another room.
Oh, and then you see the output of that camera here.
Yes.
So that as you move it, it looks like you're flying
the camera.
Is it very realistic?
It's realistic, yes. It's a 6 degree of freedom simulation. Now, we accurately represent pitch, roll, and yaw the vehicle about its 3 axes, and also translation along these axes, in other words, up, down, fore and aft, and laterally.
Well, could we actually make a landing?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, we're dropping down rapidly. 360, 350 feet.
Altitude's increasing. At 250 feet, I'll change scales on this horizontal velocity indicator to times 1.
Here comes the moon.
How long could you fly before you ran out of fuel? About several minutes. That gave you time to pick out a nice spot to land on? Hopefully, yes. Then you'd want to, what, say, the bottom of a crater or something that would be relatively...
Flat, the kind of
Any
place.
flat.
Place outside the crater, or perhaps in a crater. Unlikely to land in a crater for reasons of communication with the Earth. Oh, I see. We'll be able to talk over the sides of the mountains. You can see a relatively flat spot. We'll pitch the vehicle up, kill off what forward velocity we have. Our feet are sort of sticking out in front of us a little bit, yes. We're now coming to about 10 feet per second. We're still 65 feet up in the air. Yes, we're in the air, I guess. Anyway. We're almost stationary with respect to the surface, but 0, 0. Our forward lateral velocity, now we'll start descending again. So you're not moving forward and you're not moving to the side. Just going straight down. Straight down. Have you fly all the way down to the touchdown? Almost all the way. We haven't approved until just under a certain distance above the moon, and at that point we shut the engine off. Oh, you just drop the rest of the way? Yes. That won't damage it, huh? No. It's 20 feet. Where we're designing it. 10, 8, 6, 4, like, shut off. Oh, and then we just drop down to the bottom. Oh, that felt like a very soft landing. I assume that you can get us back up to the orbit around the moon.
Can by 5, pushing another button.
Right. Well, that's very interesting. Thank you very much.
That means there is no more explanation for the tides. If the moon, for example, had only 1,000th part of its current mass, then the tides would only be 2 inches high under conventional theories instead of sometimes 14 feet. And that means that if it is proved that the moon is a plasma, then all gravitational theories are out, and a new concept of the cosmos and of its laws has to be evolved.
The first landing of this LEM on the moon will certainly be one of the brightest chapters in the relatively short history of manned spaceflight. But in a broader sense, I suppose it's only a continuation of man's age-old desire to fly, a quest that has tantalized him for centuries. Leonardo da Vinci, who visualized man's flight 500 years ago, experienced the same fever when he wrote, "For once you have tasted flight, you will walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward. For there you have been, and there you long to return." This is John Fitch, MIT science reporter.
Aren't you being a bit adventurous, though, because you know that we're going to be able to test out your theories on the moon fairly soon?
Well, not anymore. 11 years ago, of course, it was rather taking a risk. I was considered a lunatic, of course. But by now, the evidence, accumulated evidence, is already so much in my favor that I'm not taking any risks anymore. On the contrary, there is scientific views expressed all over the world now that the moon seems to be of a quite different nature of what was assumed.
But the Americans and Russians are thinking of landing men on it.
Oh, well, that will never happen.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond.
The kinds of technologies that we're testing out on Space Station are definitely helping us with our goals of going beyond low Earth orbit. So we have a really robust exploration program at NASA.
A set of crewed flights will test and prove the systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
Ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector good. Ag thought.
The Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Quando ci avventureremo più lontani, oltre l'orbita bassa. Missioni oltre l'orbita bassa potranno solo essere uno sforzo. Un giorno ci permetteranno, che ripeto, non è domani, ma sicuramente un giorno ci permetteranno, che ripeto.
We are able to investigate the variety of types of landing sites that they hope to accomplish.
I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may. When you were carrying out that incredible moonwalk, did you find that the surface was equally firm anywhere, or were there harder and softer spots that you could detect? And secondly, when you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
Rather flat regions, the craters, we could find the 2, 3, possibly 4 inches. And so we feel that in moving around in this rough terrain.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see. I don't remember seeing any.
Neil, you were, be it the moon or Mars or I don't know where.
I just see it as a beginning, not just this flight, but in this program, which has really been a very short piece of human history, an instant in history, the entire program. It's a beginning of a new age.
Celebrate each little success, every step, every move.
To you, we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. Those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. Breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Northern coast of South America, Venezuela and Colombia. I'm not sure you'll be able to see all that on your screens down there.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen. So
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. The only limit to a human future is in our own imagination.
In 1968, Neil Armstrong, lunar lander trainer. The first 20 went well. Suffers a rare malfunction.
All of a sudden it lurched, kind of tipped over on one side.
Neil Armstrong had a particularly cool head. He went back to his desk and finished out his workday because he didn't see any reason that having just narrowly escaped death, he would clock out and go home early.